Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. The time has arrived. It is time for the Shadowlands beta tank tier list moving into Shadowlands. If you're new to the channel here, the main purpose of this channel is to be a resource providing information about the specializations and classes moving into Shadowlands and some of the new features, what to look forward to, what to get excited about, and all of that jazz. So the main purpose of these tier lists is supposed to be how fun is the specialization, and more importantly, how long do I think that I could play it without getting bored out of my mind, because you're going to be playing one character for a really long time in Shadowlands. The way that I'm gauging that you can level up your legendaries, you can level up your conduits, you're going to be pretty committed to one character. And for myself, at least personally, the most important part of that decision making process is what can I play without getting bored after a long period of time. Competitively, as far as tanks go, it seems like they have done a really good job of shoring up the weaknesses that every tank specialization had in Battle for Azeroth. And it seems like there's a strong attempt in equalizing the power, because if you were a tank player for most of Battle for Azeroth and Mythic Plus, it was pretty much all about Prot Warriors. In Legion, it was pretty much all about Blood Death Knights, and there wasn't much variety. It wasn't that the other tanks were necessarily bad, it was just everybody saw these as number one. They were competing in the MDI. And I do think the other benefit, if you do opt to go for a tank specialization in Shadowlands, is that no matter what you pick, you're going to be invited to a group, because finding a tank is really hard. So if you really wanted to be that Necro Lord Death Knight, you probably get away with it as Blood. Will your raid appreciate you not min-maxing? Probably not, but at that point, they're getting a little bit pushy, you know. But let's jump into this. The first specialization up for the chopping block is the Blood Death Knight. So this is going to be a bit of a summary of what the specializations are getting back, what I'm interested in the most about them, that intrigued me, because I'm not often a tank player. Like, I'll fill the role when I need to in a group, but it hasn't been my main role since probably the Burning Crusade. And looking more in detail at these specializations actually did intrigue me into maybe trying to be a tank again. But for the Blood Death Knight, to try and speed up the rotation, increase their own personal survivability, they're making Rune Tap baseline, they're making Blood Tap baseline into the specialization. That's going to speed up your runes, that's going to make you a little bit more durable, and give you a little bit more decision making aside from just kind of being a Death Strike meat puppet. It's going to introduce a lot more gameplay. Some of the Covenant abilities synergize incredibly well to the playstyle of the Blood Death Knight. Something like the Swarming Mist is going to have great synergy with Bone Storm. So if you're a Blood Death Knight that loved ramping up that maximum AoE pressure and that was fun gameplay to you, it's going to be an awesome option. A sick animation. We've got for the Night Fae, we've got Death's Due, which is more or less just replacing Death and Decay with a really pretty and fancy fairy one, but it does a ton of damage. It's pretty simple. It goes into the kit really nicely, and you're going to have a lot of fun with it. The other one that for myself was such a controversial decision, the Necro Lords, the Transmog, the theme, everything fits so well with Death Knight, but Abomination's Limb, which is the Covenant spell, I just unfortunately don't think it's going to compete in terms of throughput with the other options. But basically, you could spawn an extra arm that just pulls things to you constantly. It looks so sick. It's such an amazing spell that, I mean, I'll probably pick it even if it isn't the best one. There's a lot of new and exciting things for the Blood Death Knight. Some returning spells like Anti-Magic Zone for extra utility. The removal of artificial battle reses means you're pretty much got a solid spot if the group needs a battle res. So in my mind, you can't go wrong with the Blood Death Knight. It's getting a lot of improvements. It's got a lot of new and exciting things coming to it, even though Necrolords could be better. I mean, that's really my only complaint, is it's because I'm biased towards one of the Necrolords, but I feel like Blood Death Knight is a spec that I could play for a long time. You've got Death Grip to reposition mobs, Gorfiend's Grasp, all the classic things that you'd expect to see on the Blood Death Knight, basically just enhanced, improved upon, along with a lot of new features, which is why I'm putting Blood Death Knight on. This is going to be so tough for me. It's going to be such a hard decision on where I want to put these specializations, because a lot of people are going to be like, but it's not the best at the moment. How could you put it at that high of a tier, right? So maybe S tier is also going to include its competitive viability at the moment, but right now I really want to put Blood Death Knight on the S tier. It's got battle res, it's got a bunch of improvements, some cool new stuff. Now we're doing it. It's up there. It's been done. I can't take it back at this point. It's been done. There is no undoing that which has been done. Now, the Brewmaster Monk, a specialization that we don't see very frequently in Mythic Plus, although it was a great performer in raids for Battle for Azeroth. It was a specialization that I had to admit I honestly spent the least amount of time on, but it's definitely a unique tanking play style with the introduction of Stagger. Well, it's not an introduction. It's been there for a long time. But basically, they're the procrastinators of tanks. They get really hit really hard, but they put the damage off for later. And then they deal with it by drinking it off, drinking some brews. That's a great way to solve your problems, isn't it? No, it's not, probably. But it's an interesting mechanic that is entirely unique to the Brewmaster Monk, which intrigued me. Some of the new Covenant spells, like the Bone Dust Brew, really enhance the rotation and reward correctly playing the Brewmaster Monk, which was awesome to see. Other options, like the Kyrian Covenant, Weapons of Order, has some great synergies with legendaries, accessing you to a ton of keg smashing. So if you just wanted a ton of kegs to toss around, it is looking like a cool Covenant to go after. Some baseline spells coming back. You got Expel Harm, so some of the downside to the Brewmaster was you were at the mercy of your healer. You couldn't really sustain yourself, and the healer had to keep you going. With Expel Harm coming back and the introduction of Celestial Brew, you are going to have massive shields, massive healings. At the moment, it is outright outperforming all the other tank options when it comes to Mythic Plus. Remember, it's the beta, though. If anything's performing well now, it's probably not a good thing, because all the eyes are on you, and you don't want all the eyes on you. But even if it doesn't end up being the best, let's say it does get nerfed and reduced in its power, it's still bringing cool utility like Ring of Peace. It's getting Spinning Crane Kick baseline for some massive AoE damage potential, and it's a completely unique tank. In my mind, it justifies going on the S tier. It was that good when I played it, and I haven't played tank as like a main role in a long time, but I was pretty impressed with it. Now moving here to the Guardian Druid, this is a specialization that a lot of PvPers who probably don't like me very much know that I've played quite a bit, and I've got a lot of experience in Mythic Plus trying to gear my character up on it. But the Guardian Druid, it was always known as the self-sustain tank with Frenzied Regeneration. That's being nerfed a little bit. Frenzied Regen instead is not going to heal you as much, but it's going to increase all the healing on yourself and try and let the healer do a little bit of that. You know, the guy that in your group that wants to have something to do. So some reductions in that potentially. Cyclone is coming back baseline, and as a tank, right, you're not going to cast Cyclone when monsters are hitting you. That's a bad idea. That's not going to result in good things. But there is potential to utilize Cyclone to stop bursting mechanics, maybe as a chain interrupt. I mean, Cyclone could be absolutely game-breaking in the game in general, and potentially Guardian could exploit it. The other advantage you got as Guardian is that you still got the battle res, as that's been removed from consumables. So you still got that going for you. And for Druids specifically, it seems like they have focused in on Heart of the Wild as this returning ability and trying to be a hybrid and focusing on all these other roles. Now, this is probably going to speak more to raiding than Mythic Plus. So now you could play Heart of the Wild, maybe with a Feral Affinity or a Balance Affinity, jump into that secondary form while the second tank is tanking the boss and dealing with the, that stuff. You can switch off and do damage for a little bit. And that was something I missed from the Druid in the past, was being able to go into different roles at will. So that's returning to it, which has a really high skill cap. Now, at the highest level of gameplay, you're probably still just a bear. But if you want to be creative and have some fun along the way in your adventure, that's returning in terms of a flavor to the Druid, which looks really awesome, which is why Guardian Druid as well. I mean, I'm going to have to put it up here. Is it competing with the performance of Brewmaster? I'm not trying to say that it is right now in the beta when I do this. I'm just trying to say that it's got a lot of cool and interesting utility returning to it. Unfortunately, Convoke the Spirits did just get nerfed, though, at the time of making this video. So Swarming Mists is looking like it's probably going to be the synergy that you're going for, but there's legendaries that grant you older enhancements, immunities to crowd control that you're going to be guaranteed to ramp that thing up really high, combos well with Berserk. So to me, Guardian Druid, I still think it's a specialization I could play for a long time. Do we put it on the S tier? I'm actually starting to worry that I'm just going to put every single tank on the S tier. Maybe we can't. Is it as interesting and unique as the other specializations in terms of its utility? I think the Heart of the Wild puts it up there. I think it deserves the spot. Come on, just do it. Just do it. Okay, we did it. It's done. Oh, that was painful. It's okay. It's up there. Everybody get mad in the comments. I did that. Oh, God, we did the thing. Oh, no. Prop Paladins. Prop paladins, man. They're getting holy power back. So they're going to have some more decision making as to whether or not they want to do mitigation or healing through Word of Glory or Shield of the Righteous. They've sort of shored up the weakness of Shield of Righteous downtime where you kind of just feel like you explode somewhat. It's still, I would say, generally the weakness of the specialization. But you got Hammer of Wrath coming back for some really big slap execute phases. That was always such an awesome feeling spell on the Paladin. So it is awesome to get it back even on protection. You've got Divine Toll from the Kyrians for the Prop Paladin. So you can just shoot out a ton of shields all over the place, bouncing around. It looks awesome. It just feels awesome in general. You've got interesting utility legendaries that play excellently into your blessings, and you're just going to be generally desirable from that. It does a ton of damage. Right now, at the moment, at least, it's still doing a ton of damage. Auras are coming back. Now, if that's something to you that's just like, oh, that's a lot of extra keybinds, I don't really want to deal with that, you probably can just play with Devotion Aura if you wanted the entire time and not pay attention to it. But if you want a little bit of a spice on the auras, switching over to Concentration to reduce silences and interrupts when you anticipate them incoming, getting certain conduits to make your Crusader Aura reduce fear durations, you can add another level of complexity if you want to. And if you don't, then just sit in Devotion Aura. I'm sure that nobody's really going to get mad at you. But Prop Paladin also looked really stellar when I looked at it. Am I trying to say that it's performing better than Brewmaster? No, but it is performing pretty close to Brewmaster at the moment in the beta, but I'm slapping it up here. I'm doing it again. How can he do this? Why do I even have any other tiers? What's wrong with me, man? But Prop Paladin looked great. I'm not helping anyone make their decisions right now. If they're like, which tank should I play? Which one? He's just putting them all on the same line. I'm probably not very useful right now. But basically, you can't go wrong, I think. Honestly, like, these tanks have had improvements to their specializations, shoring up weaknesses. They have unique identifiable factors. Some really cool looking and fun Covenant spells. Who cares about how cool fun they are? How much damage do they do? Yeah, calm down, okay? We got Prot Warriors coming up next. Oh no, Prot Warriors. Oh no, what are we gonna do with you? You've been on top for so long. All of the eyes on you as the #1 tank for dungeons. That is probably the biggest problem for Prot Warrior, honestly, is that they have been the best for a really long time, and I feel like Blizzard's not going to let them be the best because they've been the best for so long, but there's going to be a lot of capping on AoE spells in Shadowlands. So you might be used to something like Revenge hitting everything. Nope, it's getting limited down to the targets it can hit. Now, there's pros and cons to that, right? You might have been one of the old school players where you liked it being difficult, getting threat on multiple monsters and really being engaged. Well, that gameplay is somewhat returning because of that. Now, if you're somebody who liked to just spam that Thunderclap, get a ton of damage out, and look really cool on the meter, you probably don't like that as much. But to me, it did introduce a level of complexity that I felt was somewhat lost in tanking. It felt like threat was pretty easy to keep and you just hit everything. But now it's a little bit harder, which I enjoyed. Are you technically weaker because of it? I mean, yes, but I personally liked that. Execute comes back for Prot Warrior. I mean, Prot Warrior feels really good in solo content, like Torghast, one of the new features. All the tanks, I think, are going to be more than capable of dealing with Torghast, but it felt exceptionally well because some of the baseline warrior spells like Whirlwind to do damage really shine in those solo scenarios where you're unlikely to use them in competitive, high-pushing dungeons and raids. So you got to mix in a lot of flavor and a lot of damage because of that. Some great utilities coming back. With Spell Reflect, always an awesome spell. There's legendaries to synergize it with your party, so if you really want that extra gameplay. You get the Spear of Bastion from the Kyrian, which, oh man, you just pin this. I really hope it ends up being the best, but you just pin this spear in the ground, pulls all the monsters into it so nobody can escape. You just get massive AoE damage out. It's going to be a great combo ability with a lot of the other Covenants coming to other specializations. You can run the Night Fae for, in my mind, and controversially a lot of other people's minds, not the best transmog, but I think it was the best transmog with that fairy plate armor. You look like an armored, super futuristic tree. I don't even know how to explain it. A tree Gundam, something, I don't know. It looked really good. And you also get Ancient Aftershock, which I've found out is actually on a different diminishing return than Shockwave. So you can get Shockwave into Ancient Aftershock, into persistent Ancient Aftershock stuns, and you have a lot of lockdown for monsters and grouping them up. And I feel like that's going to feel really good when you jump into the Prot Warrior specialization. Again, am I trying to say that it's competing at the highest level? No, because it's not. When I put it on this tier list, it is not because Prot Warrior is performing the best. It's because I really think it's going to be fun and awesome to play for a long time. And I also think that it's going to be viable, right? I'm not going to put it on this upper tier if I think that it's kind of going to be a meme. But for a lot of people, they'll be like, well, that isn't actually number one on the meters. I looked at the raid logs and this wasn't yours. That's not the point, right? Ultimately, there is going to be a number one. We're not going to know what that is. We're probably not even going to know what it is when the game actually comes out. I think it's way more important to know if a specialization is fun and you're going to get bored of it. So as a Prot Warrior, I think you're going to enjoy a lot of content. There's some cheeky legendaries too for extra mobility. You might be able to compete with those Vengeance Demon Hunters that just always get the flag carrying spots. So even taking that into consideration, I mean, do I risk it because do I just if I put it up there, everyone's gonna be like, you're just putting everything up there, but I don't really want to put it up there. It's there. It's been done. It is now locked in, and we've only got one specialization left for the tanks: the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Not a lot is happening to it baseline, other than some of the problems with the specialization, which were pretty important. Things like gluttony that cause your metamorphosis to feel like RNG, whether or not you'd be able to activate it, then the necessary vision of perfection to get more of those metamorphosis procs. You're not going to have to worry about that so much because they're getting Fell Devastation baseline. I kind of just thought of it as like the eye beam, but it's kind of out of your mouth. The mouth beam, that doesn't sound appropriate, but basically Fell Devastation is going to be back baseline. It's going to be a nice little cooldown to heal yourself up and activate the demonic talent that is now available to Vengeance, so you can transform to Metamorphosis more on demand than with just only the Metamorphosis cooldown itself. So taking away some of that RNG, making you have the ability to control when it's happening and when you want to boost up your durability or potentially even your damage, which was great to see. The Spirit Bomb build is definitely strong right now. Super fun for massive AoE damage in dungeons. People are going to controversially disagree with me here about this Covenant, but when I looked at it, it looked the most interesting. Just thematically for Demon Hunter, is it actually going to be good? Maybe in a single target raid situation, but the hunt from the Night Fae, which is basically just Illidan's ability to just, whoop, I'm over there now, I'm on this guy. It's super awesome and fun thematically. You get a little bit of Fury generation on the targets. This is why I think it could compete in a single target raid environment. But if you just wanted to zip and you just wanted to zap and you were already a Vengeance Demon Hunter, so you were doing a lot of that, you can do it probably 3 times as much if you wanted to do that. And in PvP, it goes through line of sight. I don't know what the repercussions of that is. If you're gonna jump through the building at Warsong Gulch, if you're like the potential on it looked absolutely insane for that. But obviously, if you care about just actual performance and utility, Sinful Brand from the Venthyr still looked really awesome and cool. Just applying Sinful Brand, reducing cast speeds, attack speeds, applying a really hard-hitting dot at the moment. So it has standard choices. It has cheeky choices. They've shored up some of the annoyances of the Spec and BFA. Fundamentally, it's not changing a huge amount, but all that cheekiness and now being able to control it and Spirit Bomb being super awesome. Why did I even have other tiers? It's not a tier list, it's a tier row. I mean, I should have named it tier row, I guess, but I mean, Vengeance Demon Hunter, oh, they're all up there. They're all up there. I'm doing it. I'm going to be the only one to do this. I'm going to look like an absolute idiot, but you know what? It has to be done. It has to be done. Do remember that this is a tier list looking at some of the cool and awesome new features of these specializations moving into Shadowlands. I think the tanks all look remarkable. Does that mean that one of them is going to end up fundamentally being the best? Yes. And at the moment on the beta, it is Brewmaster. But does that actually matter? Is it going to get nerfed? Probably. It's the beta. We don't even have the game out yet. And if you're at the top, you might be at the bottom at the end of it. This is more or less to try and give you a sneak peek of what these specializations are getting in Shadowlands, and then my opinion from playing this game for I don't even want to admit how many years of playing this game at a high level from all stances in the game, and just give you my current vibe on the specializations. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. So I hope explaining the flavor of these specializations has helped you somewhat in making the decision-making process for what you want to play. I know putting them all in the same tier probably didn't help you too much, but if you want to check out the specific reviews to really get into detail of the specializations to make sure that you're making the right choice, I'm going to have a link above me to a list of my reviews on the specializations. You can check out some of the other ones as well, as I'm going to be having them for every spec, and I'm doing my best to keep them updated, but it's constantly happening. I'm doing my best to keep them all updated And I'm going to be updating the tier lists as well, as I currently had them out for range DPS, melee DPS, and healers. I'm going to be updating the range DPS one, certainly, with all the changes that just happened to mages and shamans and all that. Like, that one definitely needs an update. It's going to be getting updates. If you're interested in that content, subscribe up above, subscribe down below. I'll have the link to the tier list also in the description down below. If you like the video, like the video. If you want to say something about the video or call me an idiot, that's for the comments down below. Leave a comment. Other than that, I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.